people were divided. People were talking about it, so we're going to dive into it. I want to hear what you two thought. Were you pro-protest, or are you against it? How'd you feel?
Well, what I'll say is that being inside the stadium, it was definitely impactful. You know, the 3252 is such a big part of LAFC. So when you come to the Banc of California, you instantly know that you're going to hear them doing a lot of chanting and cheering and singing. And so it was so quiet, and you just were looking around and everybody was asking questions, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And finding out that it was, you know, about something about the Galaxy game and not feeling like the players gave their all, or they weren't getting the best possible, I guess they weren't getting the LAFC that they felt like they should get. I understood that, and, you know, the Galaxy game was very disappointing, I think, for all of us. I don't think anybody, you know, was sitting there thinking that this was okay, and I definitely don't think the players were thinking that. And I think that's what Steve ultimately was trying to say, is that a lot of times as fans, like, our whole thing is, like, we just react, you know, and when you lose so many big games, especially to your rivals, you're frustrated. But don't think for a second that the players are not frustrated as well. Mm-hmm. And I think when you're looking at these players, especially with the May that they've had, they're running on fumes, they're bandaged up, you know, they're playing to the extremities physically and mentally. And when you watch players like Latif Blessing and some other players at the end of the San Jose game, they crumbled to the ground. Like, these guys are just, they're at the end of what they can give. And so games against your rivals, they can be disappointing, but I wouldn't assume that that means that they're not giving their all. I mean, all players want to do is give back to the fans. And so even though the protest, I think, was impactful and it made sense on paper, I don't necessarily feel like maybe it was the right way to go about things, because the team needs the 3252 and the fans behind them. And I almost feel like it might have been a little bit counterproductive. Yeah. But, you know, I get where their frustration was coming from, because we all felt down after the Galaxy game.
Well, here are the facts. LAFC is in first place. Yeah. They are top of the Supporters' Shield going into international break. They did crash out of the Open Cup pretty poorly, though. Right. They have never won at Dignity Health Sports Park. And to your point, that protest was powerful. You noticed immediately how quiet it was in there. I was even in the press box when Chicho was taking his penalty. I could hear the San Jose player trying to trash talk him, which, by the way, San Jose player that was doing that, you're doing it in English, and Chicho's English is so-so, so he probably didn't care for what you were saying at all. But that was how quiet it was in there.
I mean, here's my take. And a lot of people ask the question, why 12 minutes? 3252, other than the amount of people that are held in the North End, 3 + 2 + 5 + 2 = 12. 12 meaning 12th man. 3252 being the 12th man. They express their opinion. It goes beyond the performance of just that U.S. Open Cup game against the Galaxy. It's performance overall against teams in big games, as well as like the performance that we have against the Galaxy. I get it. I see the fronts. I see the interesting thing and the arguments on all ends. But to me, I'm looking at it from a glass half full perspective. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. We're celebrating Memorial Day right now because we had soldiers that went out there and did their thing, giving us the ability to have the freedom to have these discussions right now. So to me, it was very powerful. You heard eerie silence in Banc of California Stadium. I want to tip my hat off to the 20 fans of San Jose, all the season ticket holders at PayPal Park for making the journey down south. We certainly appreciate you. We certainly heard you. LAFC ends up scoring right off the bat within 6 minutes. And then 26 seconds later, after the 3252 went into Dolly Black and Gold, we had Ryan Hollingshead coming and scoring his 4th goal of the MLS season. I think it was very powerful. I agree. What Steve said, together, we are better. The 3252 is the heart and soul of this club, and Banc of California Stadium is the fortress that it is, an intimidating place to be because of what the North End does.
Yeah, Steve's in a tough place, right? Because he has to stay close to the fans, he has to stay close to the players, so he has to really navigate a tough waters there for him. I mean, for me, personally, look, it was a choice. They made a choice. The 3252 as a collective body made a choice. And a protest without people being against it on the other side is not a protest to me. Like, if you protest and everyone claps for you, that's not a protest. You have to have some kind of push and pull there. So they made a choice. For me personally, I would not have been the timing I would have. I think it lends too much credence to Galaxy matches, although I know they're important. You're so fixated on it. I feel like you're just hanging a noose even more and more on people, hanging a heavy rock on them. And I don't like that. But I will say this. I'm not a member of 3252. This is not my choice. If you are one of those people that are saying, oh, well, I wouldn't have done that, then join the 3252 and have your voice heard. They did it as a collective body. It was powerful in that way. And the last thing I want to say about it is this. It was peaceful.
Yeah.
It was peaceful and powerful. And I'll take those two things more so every day over what I heard happened after that Galaxy match, which was a select few people deciding that they wanted to confront players in person. That cannot happen. We cannot have that. So if this is what they want to put their time and energy into instead, I'll take that all day long over what could be the alternative and what we've seen in actually other countries across the world when similar type of things happen. So we can't have that.
I was just about to say that fan culture is under the microscope right now. If you've been paying attention to anything that's going on in Europe and in particular in France, there's fans that think it's okay at the end of games to come onto the field and, throw fiery objects into the faces of players, things like that to make their thoughts known in that way. And so I think what Vince is saying about it being peaceful is very important because nobody got hurt, nobody was physically harmed. So that's really good. And I think that that's the best way to do things if you want to get your voice out there. I would just say that, like, even in the chat, there's definitely a divide there because people feel like the team never really stood up in that Galaxy game. If they were all fully fit and Carlos Vela didn't go off the pitch and Cheeky Palacios didn't get knocked on the back of his neck, like, I guess I could understand it more. But these boys are bandaged up. I'm telling you. Wasn't Latif Blessing in a boot the other day and still came out and played a game? So I would just say, like, maybe not think that the players are not trying, but maybe they just can't perform to the best of their ability at the moment. The mentality aspect of being able to beat your rivals, that's something that can be spoken about, but you have to cheer for the team in bad times as well as good. Yep. That's what supporters do. And so that's kind of, my take on it. But the 32-52, we need you guys.
I mean, we're in a unique situation in which we have the ability to talk to people such as Steve Cherundolo and have access to the players. We don't get that as Dodger fans, or in my case, Mets fans. We don't get that as Lakers fans. We have the ability to communicate and express our desires, but it goes beyond wins and losses. Wins and losses are exceptionally important, but I think the argument is it's when you have a team that didn't have really any shots on goal, that's where people question the heart. There's no way to equate somebody's mentality and heart when it comes into how they play. But obviously, when you're up against your biggest rivals, and it goes beyond the world of MLS, it goes beyond the world of LAFC and Galaxy. We talk college football, Auburn versus Alabama, Michigan versus Ohio State, college basketball, Duke versus UNC, baseball, Red Sox versus Yankees, football, Packers versus Bears. Beating your rival is very important. I get everybody's argument on all fronts, without a doubt. I don't like the ability to confront the players and kind of like say these nasty things, but the reason why LA has some of the best fans in the world, and yes, I'm saying this from the eyes of a New Yorker, is because when good times are there, we're there behind our team, regardless of how we express our opinion. It's not a matter of, we're giving up on this team. We're not standing up for things in a certain light. It's like we care. We really care. And it's okay to worry. It's okay to express your opinions because it really does show you care. How it's conducted, obviously, it could be done in several different ways. But the players responded. And I think we're all going into this Memorial Day weekend happy because the players took that message. The players took the silence to heart, and they performed, which at the end of the day is really what we want in the City of Champions. Two things.
There's no metric for heart, and that's what drives me crazy. This whole idea, like you're like, there's no shot, so that's maybe heart. And I'm not just raging into you. I've done this. Everybody that always tells me, they didn't play with enough heart. Every time a team loses, I hear they just didn't have the passion. And maybe that is true in some instances, but you cannot watch that from the outside and know. You really cannot. And honestly, the reason why it makes me so hot more times than not is it's actually a metric that most people use to defend the players that they like and to really get against the players they don't like. And it actually gets more nefarious in a lot of instances. It becomes a racial issue on some topics in some ways. So that's why anytime someone talks about heart and passion, it really bothers me. And if you think about it from the flip side, if they're saying, well, we always bring it, you guys didn't, could there ever be a time then, if that's the way the conversation goes and it's a two-way conversation, shouldn't the players at one point ever be able to be like, well, I just didn't think, yeah, you guys were cheering today, but it just wasn't good enough? Because the players out there were, in fact, playing football, right? But they just weren't good enough. So can a player then turn to a fan and go, well, I didn't feel the passion there. You're banging the drum, but I didn't feel the passion.
No, they very well can. But the thing is, like, I really believe that we're always going to win in the stands because I doubt the 32-52 won't ever bring it. The thing I will say, and we can still have the conversation about this, the most important factor about it is regardless of how our opinions are divided, whatever the case may be, we're still on the same side. And the most important thing to me is message received, message achieved. LAFC won in a game that a season or two ago, I don't think they would have won. San Jose, has only won one game at Banc of California Stadium, a come-from-behind win. I think it was very important. The statement was well-received, and the team won. And at the end of the day, to me, that's the only thing that matters is those 3 points.
Well, the one thing that I will say is when I sit up late at night thinking about why LAFC cannot beat the Galaxy, what I come back to is the fact that LAFC is still a newish club, and I think when you look at a team like the Galaxy, why do we always talk about how they're so efficient in front of goal and when they have one chance they bury it, especially in big games? Is because they have the muscle memory to do so. And I think that is important when you're talking about sport, is that some teams know how to put it away, some teams know how to win the big games because they've been there and done it before and the prestige is there in the club. We are new. And I think that's something that LAFC has to build over time. How did they get over that mental block? I don't know, but LAFC does not really have that history of winning big when it counts, and never take it for granted. It's the reason why Real Madrid could be basically, a ran down version of their best selves and still come out and win the Champions League. It's because they have the heritage, you know what I mean? So LAFC has to build that up. We're still a very new club, and I get that it sucks to lose to your rivals, but we're top of the table, The totality of the season has got to come into play, and we can't just write off the team because they lost a game that really hurts us emotionally.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on something real quick that Andreas brought up in the chat. And Andreas, you're always here for us, and I love that. But the one thing you said about the eye test is the whole reason why I'm so adamant against that, because your eye test versus my eye test versus Steve Cherundolo's eye test versus Scout's eye test, it's so different. It varies so differently. And honestly, I've seen this throughout many teams that I've covered. In a lot of instances, the eye test is done by people that are using tinted glasses for players that they like and players that they don't like. So while I agree with you, yes, there's sometimes you can look at a team and maybe say, I don't feel like they're trying as hard. I would honestly tell anyone to try to fight against that because they're professional athletes, and there's no way of telling one how injured they are, how fit they are, what's going on in their lives, just like they wouldn't be able to tell that of you, a supporter. So that's why the eye test, I would rather, if there was a metric that we could use to measure passion, I would much rather have that, because then at least it's a blind metric and it doesn't take into account whether you like this guy because he wears your favorite number or whatever position he plays. So that's my spiel on passion when it comes to the eye test.